Welcome to a special edition of KBJR 6 News Today. On KBJR 6, your home for the 2022 Winter Games.
So leading off our coverage this morning is KBJR 6's Alexis Bass joining us now to preview some notable Team USA members. Good morning, Alexis.
Good morning, you guys. I'm so happy to be here. That's right. The total of 9 athletes and coaches competing, and you bet they have their eyes on gold.
This is a potential double for 5 and maybe gold for the U.S. Can he get it?
There are several familiar faces who will be competing for Team USA.
I get to represent Chisholm and Duluth and the Duluth Curling Club, and now, I've lived in Superior for 6 years, and we're really getting ingrained in that community too. So to carry, to get to carry 3 torches in one, and essentially for the entire area, is something that, I don't take lightly.
Team Schuster, which includes former Bulldog and 3-time Olympian John Landsteiner, won Team USA's first ever Olympic gold in 2018 and are pressing for the podium once again. Duluth native Chris Plies makes his Olympic debut, pulling double duty in both mixed doubles and men's curling.
You obviously are excited to represent your family and your friends and everything like that, but high on that list would be Duluth.
On the women's side of the Bonspiel, UMD alum and homegrown Duluthian Eileen Geving returns to Team USA, hoping to hammer down their first Olympic medal. Current and former Bulldogs are going for gold, 4 of them on Team USA. Maddie Rooney is back after backstopping the U.S. to gold in the 2018 games, while UMD captain Noah Cates takes his skates to the Olympics for the very first time.
It's obviously the honor of a lifetime to have the opportunity to do it again, and at the stage of the Olympics, I'm so pumped to get over there and wear that jersey.
And heading down the slopes, former St. Scholastica Nordic skier Paul Schomer has high hopes in catching his stride in the U.S.'s first medal in the biathlon. Now I'll hand things off to our meteorologist, Hunter McCullough. Hey, Hunter, do you have some gold medals in that forecast today?
Alexis, I sure hope there's some gold medals in our forecast, but normally we talk about the Northland forecast here. We're going to go across the sea here over to China, talking about the Beijing forecast, and their climate is a little bit warmer than our climate. Normally, in February, their high temperature is around 43 degrees, average low of around 22. Just to compare, here in Duluth, our average high is 21 degrees, so their average low is pretty much equivalent to our average high. Currently, it is 10 o'clock, just after 10 o'clock in Beijing in the evening. On this Friday, 22 degrees is what they're currently seeing right now. Now, there's a very broad ridge over Beijing, and that's going to last here throughout several days in the forecast. You can see these temperatures above freezing, so a lot of melting of that snow, which may impact those athletes over there. Going to send it back to you, Kendall.
All right, thank you, Hunter. There are so many great winter sports to watch this year, but one of particular interest in the Northland is curling, and joining us now is Olympic gold medalist and former Team Schuster member Tyler George. He's live for us in Stamford, Connecticut, the headquarters of NBC Sports. Tyler, good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Oh, no problem. Happy to be on.
So for those of you who might not know, could you tell us a little bit about your curling history and with Team Schuster?
We won the Olympic gold medal in 2018. It was the first ever gold for our sport, for our country. We also won a couple national championships together as a squad. And what seems like 100 years ago, everything's happened now. But yeah, now it's fun. I get to transition to this other side of things, working with NBC, and I got the best seat in the house for the games going forward.
Yeah, and could you tell us a little bit more about that role with NBC and what you'll be doing for this Winter Olympics?
Yeah, they brought me on as an analyst for the game action and studio appearances as well. So basically just giving them all the inside stories about my old squad. That certainly helped get in the door. But yeah, also just it's a long 3 weeks, not just calling the U.S. men's games, but I'll be doing mixed doubles games as well. I've already had a few of those and had a first live game last night. That was a fun experience. And some of the women's games as well. So really looking forward to this experience. Kind of a dream gig getting into this field. Have the foot in the door, and they haven't kicked me out yet. So hopefully it continues on from here.
Yeah, that is so cool to hear about. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we are really looking forward to hearing more from you throughout the Olympics.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of curling, we decided this week was the perfect time to get a world-class lesson of our own.
Yeah, the KBJR 6 morning team and the sports department tried our hand at the sport over in Two Harbors.
So now you get to watch us learn how to curl and experience firsthand that it looks a lot harder. On February 1st, we headed up the North Shore in search of adventure and met with Bryce Hansen at the curling club in Two Harbors.
So the general motion, right? Feet together, stand up, and then we're just gonna let our body weight, the sinking of our body weight, propel the rock. Slide straight out. Everything's in a line, out front.
When we started our first curling lesson, we quickly realized there would be a pretty steep learning curve.
And then, before we knew it, training was over. It was time for our first match.
Ball. The hardest part is not falling over.
Most comfortable standing and watching them come back this way. That's what I'm most comfortable with right now.
At first, I was putting too much weight in my arms, and I'm not that strong, so it was like shaking.
It's harder than it actually looks, but it's a lot of fun.
Curling is amazing. Watch out, Team Schuster.
And a huge thank you to Bryce Hansen for the lesson and the Two Harbors Curling Club for hosting us. What a fun time.
So much fun. If you haven't done it, try it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was a little sore.
Oh, I'm still sore. It was like 3 days ago. I'm still sore from doing that. My legs hurt.
Arms and legs.
Yeah.
Full body workout.
Like Kendall said, it looks a lot harder than it actually is. It's pretty tough to actually, you know, lean down and throw, and you have to turn. There's a lot of thinking going on in that whole process.
Definitely.
So.
Well, coming up, it's the 2022 Olympics right now, but meet a Duluth girl who already has her eyes set on 2026.
Welcome to a special edition of KBJR 6 News Today. On KBJR 6, your home for the 2022 Winter Games.
For one Duluth figure skater, before she knew how to tie her shoes, she knew how to ice skate. This 13-year-old is now making history, but before we meet her, we need to go back almost 40 years.
Yeah, so that's right here. And they keep track of these, and if you flip them over, it's from the years of champions.
Right.
The memories flood back. Callie Mannion grew up at the ice rink.
I skated with both the Duluth Figure Skating Club and the Superior Club all through the 90s, actually the 80s through the 90s.
But life had another idea, and Callie moved away from figure skating.
After I graduated, I did coach. I took some time off and really missed it.
And then something drew her back. Her love for the sport runs as deep as the grooves skates make on the ice, and all resurfaced with her daughter, Maddie.
When Maddie came along and she was old enough to start walking on her skates, I put her out there, and my passion for the sport came back, and how much I loved it and how much it was such a part of my childhood.
And now a part of Maddie's childhood, following in her mom's footsteps as a Duluth figure skater.
I love the freedom of skating. Like, I love learning new things every day. I love competing, and, you know, it gives me a lot of motivation to just go out and do what I love to do.
And make history. Last season, she placed second at the U.S. Figure Skating Championships. That made Maddie the third Duluth figure skater to hit the podium since 1991.
It was exciting to end the year with a second place finish and competing against some of the best skaters in the country.
Good energy now. Good energy.
But for Maddie and her coach, there's still work to be done.
You just keep trying to improve as much as we can. But as long as we enjoy the sport and keep improving, and she's just got such a strong desire to keep learning harder and harder moves and elements, we're just going to take it as far as we can.
And if Maddie has it her way, this won't be the last time you see her on TV.
I mean, not many people have the Olympics as a dream, but my goal is to make it to the national development team. And when I'm older, and when I get to the junior, senior level, I want to compete against some of the best skaters in the nation.
Cheering her on will be those who got her here in the first place.
She's kind. She listens, she's coachable, she's just a good person, and in skating that makes a huge difference, and you have to believe in yourself, and she really does believe in her skating and her confidence.
Maddie will be competing at the 42nd Annual Northland Figure Skating Competition this weekend right here in Duluth. And here to talk about that competition with me is Heather, the ice show director. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
So for those that don't know what this competition is about, can you just explain a little bit about it?
The United States Figure Skating Association has sanctioned this event, and there are all kinds of different events for people to come in. But these skaters have been working hard all year long to practice in each individual event that they may choose to do. Some of them are just stepping out as 3-year-olds coming out for their very first competition, barely knowing how to skate. They might execute a little snowplow stop, but there's also people coming out participating with the Excel Series National Championship. This is a qualifying part of that competition, and people might be working towards competing in Boston this summer.
Oh, wow.
There's also some super fun theatrical events called Showcase, and these artistic events, people can maybe not do the triple, but yet on the other hand, they can have a really good time expressing themselves. There's spins events, jumps events, and each person can have their own individual goal showcased.
Yeah, definitely. And then I know you talked about some of the ages, but where do these people come from?
There are 40 different figure skating clubs from around mostly the Midwest, but also Canada. And so there are 375 skaters here and enjoying Duluth at this time of year because it's fun to see the canal buzzing with all of these little pretty figure skating dresses around.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you mentioned some of the events, but which ones do you think that people should really look out for when they come to attend?
Oh, it's really hard to pick because each skater comes out with their own individual passion, and I do think that the Senior Lady event is going to be what's the most challenging for if you want to come out and see some big tricks and also some beautiful artistry.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much.
And like I said, the Northland Figure Skating Competition is now through Sunday. Over 400 skaters from Canada and the upper Midwest will be competing. It's taking place at the deck in Amsoil Arenas and is free to attend.
Well, let's head back to the Northland, folks. Taking a live look outside on this beautiful Friday morning. Some cloud coverage. We saw some light snow move through earlier as well. Right now, a winter weather advisory will be going into effect early Saturday morning, 4 o'clock here in northern Minnesota, lasting until later on Saturday evening. And that's when we're going to see some light snow pushing through the Northland here, arriving in the Twin Ports sometime around 6 or 7 o'clock. The best chance for snow is going to be in far northern Minnesota, lasting throughout much of the day on Saturday. So becoming scattered if you live in northwest Wisconsin, but more consistent if you live off into northern Minnesota. Heading into the overnight hours, Saturday night into early Sunday morning, now we start to see that snow settle down, leaving mostly to partly cloudy skies heading into Sunday. As far as our snow total forecast, still expecting 1 to 3 inches here in the Twin Ports. Same with over in northwest Wisconsin. A little bit more if you live off in northern Minnesota, Ely, Hibbing, or all seeing 3 to 6 inches by the time it's all said and done. As far as the rest of the weekend goes, 17 degrees on Saturday and 90% chance for that snow, 15 on Sunday, partly cloudy skies. But how about a high of 35 degrees as we go into Tuesday afternoon? Mostly cloudy skies, slight chance for some snow as well on Wednesday, 28 degrees, 22 on Thursday, mostly cloudy skies. For the most part, we are seeing some beautiful temperatures as we go into the rest of this weekend. Which is awesome. You gotta love that, right?
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Good weather here, some cold weather in Beijing.
Yeah, exactly. 35 degrees though next week. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at, right?
Yeah, I literally can't believe it.
You really can't. I mean, that's going to be amazing. You got the snow this weekend and then the warm temperatures next weekend. But Beijing is a lot warmer than it is here in the Northland, so that's pretty crazy too. So 35 degrees. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun here.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
Good stuff. And Hunter, you have some exciting news coming up
in the next break.
I sure do. Still to come, we're ending the show with none other than a performance with the McCullough brothers. There's my brother.
Well, the special edition of our morning show is coming to an end. You can watch the Winter Olympics right here on KBJR 6. We'll also be tracking all the sports and Olympic-related news on air and on our website. We had so much fun with you and all of our guests this morning, so thank you for joining us on KBJR 6 today.
Yes, but before we go, there's still some fun to be had, so without further ado, we will leave you with a special performance from the McCullough brothers. Now at 6, following last night's State of the Union address, President Biden will make a visit to Superior today.
Plus, investigating 2020 election results, what Wisconsin Republicans want to see happen.
And Russia continues to attack major cities across Ukraine on the 7th day of the conflict.
From KBJR 6, your weather authority, this is KBJR 6 Today.
This is a live look at Lake Avenue at 6 a.m. on this Wednesday, March 2nd, 2022. Good morning and thanks for joining us. I'm Samantha Bassarico.
And I'm Kendall Jarbo. We are looking at some pretty calm weather for our Wednesday, but we are tracking a messy winter mix moving into the region over the weekend. Let's welcome in meteorologist Hunter McCullough. Hunter, good morning to you.
Good morning. Yes, we are seeing a little bit of snow pushing through the region this morning, making things a little bit slick. But like you said, there's another system rolling through this weekend that's going to make things even more slick as we have some rain, some snow possible, a little bit of freezing rain possible as well. But I'll be talking more about that here in just a little bit. For now, kind of worrying about this light snow this morning, 19 degrees on top of the hill. According to our sensor, we are seeing some light snow here in the Twin Ports. Winds out of the northwest at 10 miles per hour as we speak. Some snow off to our north, scattered throughout the majority of the Northland down to our south as well, pushing off into northwest Wisconsin. For the most part, seeing under an inch for most locations, just enough to make things a bit slick to start off our day. Temperature-wise right now, generally in the teens to 20s around the Northland, 19 on top of the hill, 23 in Solon Springs, 22 in Ashland right now, 16 in Ironwood, 7 in Watersmeet, 14 in Grand Marais, 16 right now in Ely. According to our sensors, we are seeing some snow in Grand Rapids or Ely, two harbors, up into Grand Marais here in the Twin Ports, and over in Ironwood as well, with mostly cloudy skies to start off the day. Eventually, we will be seeing some clearing of the skies into the afternoon. Plenty of sunshine on Thursday, high of 22 degrees, and then 26 degrees on Friday, so a fairly calm end to the rest of the week. But then, like we talked about, this weekend we do have this potential for a messy, wintry system. I'll be talking more about that here in just a little bit. Our question of the day comes from Kendall, and the question is, What's something that annoys you which isn't caused by another person? Kind of a tough question. Let's take a look at a couple of these responses. Our friend Matthew, he says, well, this one stumped me. Snow in March, does that count? Matthew, yes, that does count. I like that answer a lot. Lori says the hiccups. It's so hard to get rid of the hiccups once they start. You got to scare people. You got to drink the water upside down. It's always tough. But a different Matthew says waking up before my alarm. That's always annoying, but sometimes it's actually kind of nice for some of us anyway, because you kind of wake up before your alarm. You have a chance to kind of wake up your brain before your alarm actually goes off. But I can definitely see how that could be annoying.
Yeah, I
for
always
some people.
hate it because it's so hard for me to fall asleep. So when I wake up before my alarm, I'm like, oh, I have to fall asleep again.
Yes, yes. Go through the whole process once again.
You might be alone on this one.
Yeah, maybe I am. We'll see.
Thank you, Hunter.
You're welcome.
President Joe Biden looked to calm fears of inflation, war, and the pandemic during his first State of the Union address last night.
And with his approval ratings at 41%, according to the latest polling, the speech comes at a crucial time in Biden's presidency.
Historically, the State of the Union offers presidents a chance to highlight their priorities and agenda, but much of that is taking a backseat as the Russia-Ukraine war rages on. Biden addressed the conflict along with his Supreme Court pick, economic priorities, and the COVID-19 pandemic. The president projected strength as a Western leader, laying out America's response.
Together with our allies, we're providing support to the Ukrainians in their fight for freedom. Military assistance, economic assistance, humanitarian assistance. We're giving more than $1 billion of direct assistance to Ukraine.
Speaking to a highly divided Congress where his agenda has stalled, Biden pointed to his administration's successes, including the passage of his $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. Congressman Pete Stauber shared his thoughts on the president's speech. He says if Biden were serious about wanting to build a better and stronger America, he would use our country's workforce to develop natural resources and restore energy independence. Instead, Stauber claims Biden has attacked our miners and slowed domestic energy output, making the U.S. more reliant on Russia and China.
And today, the President of the United States will be here in the Twin Ports. The President's stop in Superior will be his first following his State of the Union address.
KBJR 6's Quinn Gorham previews today's visit and what it could mean for the people of Northwest Wisconsin.
Wednesday, President Joe Biden will visit Superior to talk about the impact his bipartisan infrastructure law could have on places like the Twin Ports.
This is a bill about unity. It's literally a bill about connecting people. That's what bridges actually do.
I'm here at just one location that stands to benefit from the president's infrastructure law, the Blotnick Bridge. But it's not the only one. Superior is the perfect culmination of different locations, things like ports, roads, public transit, environment, and all of those things come together to draw the president to this area. White House senior advisor and infrastructure coordinator Mitch Landrieu says it's an especially intentional stop after Tuesday's State of the Union address.
He wanted to spend his first day on the road talking about his domestic agenda and infrastructure in Wisconsin and in Duluth.
Senator Tammy Baldwin agrees that first trip often carries some significance.
It's a tradition that following the State of the Union address, President sets off and travels to underscore some of the points he makes in the State of the Union address.
Meanwhile, Representative Tom Tiffany voted against the infrastructure bill.
Well, I'm looking forward to the president coming to Superior. Anytime a president comes to the home district, we always welcome them. What I'm anxious to hear, though, is what he's going to talk about.
And Landrieu says the Biden administration is excited to get started right here in the Twin Ports.
It's a great vision, and now we're going to make it happen.
We'll be covering the president's visit to Superior all day today, including Air Force One touching down in Duluth and Biden's speech at UWS. You can watch along right here on KBJR 6 or on our website and Facebook pages.
After the 2020 election, Wisconsin Republicans ordered an investigation into the results. Now a new report says the state should take a hard look at decertifying President Joe Biden's win. That's according to Republican-hired investigator Michael Giebelman. He presented his 136 pages worth of findings to the Assembly Elections Committee yesterday. He pointed to what he called a host of alleged problems with the 2020 election. He also offered recommendations, including eliminating the state's bipartisan State Elections Commission.
The elimination and dismantling of the Wisconsin Elections Commission. The Wisconsin Elections Commission, unfortunately, at best, is hopefully incompetent.
Now, the administrator of that commission fired back, saying Gableman's report is full of mischaracterizations and doesn't present any new information. They say the issues he claims to identify have already been litigated or otherwise addressed. Wisconsin GOP leaders have said they won't decertify Biden's win, something nonpartisan attorneys say is illegal anyway.
This morning, Russian troops continue to turn up the pressure on soldiers and volunteer fighters in Ukraine. The fighting has become more violent and deadly, with the Kremlin targeting the two largest cities, while hundreds of thousands scrambled to safety across the border.
And Jay Gray has been following the situation and joins us now with the latest along the Polish-Ukraine border.
The relentless attack on Ukraine has intensified, the most damaging and deadly strikes coming through the air.
Terrible situation, terrible. It's terrible.
And getting worse. The city of Kharkiv, now surrounded by Russian troops, this emergency services center taken out, officials say, by a missile. Kyiv is also a primary target, though a senior U.S. defense official tells NBC News a Russian convoy that stretches for 40 miles outside of the capital city has stalled, facing fuel and food shortages. As the fighting intensifies, so does the rush to get out. Close to 700,000 have already left Ukraine, and that number expected to grow significantly over the next several days.
And this is a big tragedy for me to leave my city, and actually I don't know am I going to come back or not, and I don't want to leave, but it's completely dangerous to stay here.
Dangerous and dire. Store shelves in many places empty.
No food, no bread, no water, no tablets, no pharmacy, nothing. And the people of there staying, no money to go out, to run, no money.
The UN warning the situation could quickly become Europe's largest refugee crisis this century. Jay Gray, NBC News, along the Polish-Ukraine border.
Coming up, a big honor for an Iron Range lawmaker.
Plus, the number of Minnesota gun permits reaches a new high. Here is a live look at Duluth this Wednesday morning at 6:09. Thanks for hooking up with us on KBJR 6 Today.
From CBS 3 Duluth, this is the CBS 3 News at 6.
Good evening, I'm Kristen Bakke. Thanks for joining us. We're following breaking news at this hour. 5 bodies were found in a Duluth home after a standoff in the East Hillside neighborhood. We know tonight the suspect is among the deceased. This all happened at a home on 7th Avenue East and 12th Street. CBS 3's Natalie Grant joins us live from that scene. Natalie, truly a tragic story developing there. What do we know at this time?
Yeah, Kristen, I think tragic doesn't even begin to kind of cut the surface here with this story, but police believe that the 5 people that were found dead inside of this home behind me were related. Police also confirmed that one of the deceased was the subject of that welfare check that happened earlier today before it turned into a standoff. Here's what we know so far, although there are a lot of still unanswered questions tonight. The situation started in Hermantown around 11:20 this morning. That's when the Hermantown Police Department responded to a welfare check call. They checked that person's home, but Hermantown Police weren't able to contact them. Hermantown Police then reached out to the DPD with information, which eventually led them to the home here in the Hillside neighborhood. Officers say that they knew the subject had connections with this particular home and that he likely had weapons. After surrounding the home for several hours, eventually police entered, finding 5 bodies and a dead dog. Police Chief Mike Tuskin says, and it's an extremely sad day for the city of Duluth.
Earlier today, there was an unimaginable tragedy that struck our community, one that really is very, very difficult for us, that is makes us have heavy, heavy hearts.
Now, Kristen, as I mentioned, it is believed that the individuals involved are all related, but at this time we don't know their names or how exactly they are related. We also don't know exactly how they died or what led up to this death. Now, Kristen, as this is still a very extremely active investigation, so police say that they're not able to share much past what they shared in a press conference about an hour ago. But of course, we'll bring you details as they become available.
All right, definitely a tragic day for Duluth today. That was Natalie Grant reporting live from the scene of that incident. Thank you, Natalie. On the Iron Range, one person is dead and an investigation is underway after an officer-involved shooting this morning. It happened near the 200 block of Central Avenue South in Chisholm. CBS 3's Rob Coles has spent the day at the scene and has the latest as the investigation continues.
Well, Kristen, you can see it's still a very active scene at this hour. The Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension is here investigating.
I know it's not been the greatest neighborhood a while, years back. But in the few years that I've been there now, it's not ever been a problem. So this was just a little close to home.
So far, neither the person who died or any law enforcement involved have been identified. There are also some other big questions, including if the person who died was armed or what crime they were suspected of in Morrison County. We also don't know what led law enforcement to fire their weapon or what department they worked for. And the BCA is now tasked with leading this investigation. They will also be in charge of finding out if there were any body cameras or squadron cameras that recorded the incident. But we will bring you more information as it becomes available.
CBS 3's Rob Coles reporting from the scene in Chisholm for us tonight. Thank you, Rob. Dave joins us now for a quick check of the weather. Dave, you have your eye on yet another storm system.
Yeah, the second one this week, and it has been paying off. Started around 9 o'clock in the morning towards the Iron Ranges, moved in noonish or so, a little bit later than that here in the Twin Ports. Snow up north, rain for the rest of us. Still some alerts to watch out for. So northern Minnesota, north of Duluth, from Itasca County through St. Louis County, at least the northern part, and into Lake County. Winter weather advisory in effect for another hour or so. And for the south shore of Cook County, winter storm warning could stay in effect until 10 o'clock. That's the heaviest zone for snow. The rest of us probably getting more rain than anything else. But the snow we've received so far today has knocked the roads down in northern Minnesota and even pushed towards the Twin Ports. So Highway 61 from Silver Bay up towards Grand Portage, completely covered with the fresh snow. Pretty slippery. Drive cautiously. A good portion of the rest of northern Minnesota has numerous scattered slippery spots. Been hearing reports from Tower Sedan towards Ely, 1 and 169, bit iffy there, so do travel cautiously tonight. Forecast says that tonight, 60% chance we'll be getting more rain and snow as the night goes on, but for Thursday, a high pressure system could just nudge us enough to bring a partly sunny sky in the afternoon with a high temp of 45 degrees, which could melt a lot of snow we get today. But the normal's 51. When will we get there? There is some warm-ups in sight here coming up. I'll show you when with my 7-day forecast in a few more minutes.
All right, thanks, Dave. Here's a live look at the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. tonight. Earlier this evening, Capitol Police evacuated the complex out of an abundance of caution. Reports indicated there was a, quote, aircraft that posed a probable threat. Police have since said there is no longer a threat to the Capitol. That's all we know right now, but we hope to have more details tonight at 10. Key witnesses took the stand today in a Duluth police officer's trial. That includes the man who Officer Tyler Liebfried shot when he fired through a closed door, and Duluth Police Chief Mike Tuskin. Liebfried faces a felony dangerous weapons charge, specifically intentionally firing a gun, endangering safety. If convicted in this September 2020 incident, he faces a maximum sentence of 3.5 years in prison. CBS 3's Quinn Gorham was in the courtroom for us again today. Quinn, at 5, you talked about the witnesses from the first part of the day. What kinds of things did we hear from the rest of the witnesses today?
Well, Kristen, Liebfried's own supervising officer, Police Chief Mike Tuskin, took the stand in the second part of today's proceedings. He recounted the standards officers are subjected to when presented with a potentially life-threatening situation. This is the body cam footage of the incident, which was showed during the trial today. According to the DPD's use of force policy, force is justified if it's determined any, quote, reasonable officer would have done the same. Tuskin says that's an objective standard, and deadly force should always be an officer's last resort. He also said if there's appropriate time to find cover, there's an expectation for an officer to identify themselves and issue a warning unless they've been shot at. Body camera footage shows 12 seconds between the bangs the officers heard on the door and the first 4 shots Liebfried fired. Time he used to retreat into an alcove to the side of the door. A DPD training officer also testified today, and according to his testimony, officers are expected to be sure of their target and what lies beyond or between that target before firing. The prosecution will call its last witness tomorrow morning, and then the defense will call theirs. Tyler Liebfried is expected to be part of those testimonies tomorrow.
All right, Quinn Gorham in the newsroom for us tonight. Thank you, Quinn. Several schools in the Northland were evacuated today amid bomb threats. In Cloquet, police say the high school received a recorded call this morning. The threat was identical to the one called into ESCO schools about a month ago and was similar to threats called into other schools around the state today. Police and a bomb-sniffing dog combed the Cloquet High School and didn't find anything. Students were let back in around 2 o'clock this afternoon. All after-school activities are canceled. Little Fork, Big Falls schools and International Falls High School also had a threat called into their buildings. Students were evacuated in both districts. Police have not found anything there either. A local community college held a job fair today specifically trying to convince people to consider a career in law enforcement. The Fond du Lac Tribal and Community College hosted the expo. It was a chance to learn about job opportunities and the type of training and background applicants need. The Fond du Lac College's law enforcement program coordinator says they've seen enrollment numbers dip recently, citing events in the last several years.
This is why this is so important right now, is the demand. The demand to get into this profession is an unprecedented level that we haven't seen in years.
Law enforcement recruiting is an issue on the state level. Today's event is a return to normal after a 2-year hiatus. Gun ownership in Minnesota is at an historic high. With more guns in households, advocates say there's a greater need for educating kids about gun safety. This push comes after a 10-year-old boy was shot and killed by another juvenile in Minneapolis over the weekend. The gun in that case was not secured properly. Advocates say removing the mystery about guns is important, and teaching kids this simple rule goes a long way. If you see a gun, stop, don't touch, leave the area, and tell an adult. You can also remove the bolt from a rifle or the slide or from a pistol and separate them. Keeping guns and ammunition is another layer of protection when it comes to kids and guns. Still to come on Live Local CBS 3, for those of you in the poultry industry, stick around for some tips and tricks to spot the bird flu as soon as possible.
76 degrees, our record high temp from 1987. Oh, wouldn't that be nice right now? We're going to stay cooler than normal for a couple of days. And when we do get back towards normal for the weekend, that could be enough to trigger some showers and thunderstorms. But first, we still deal with a little bit of rain and snow. We'll talk about for how long coming up after our break.
An absolute lightning show happening right now over the Twin Ports. A live look at Duluth, where strong storms are moving in as we speak. You can see those flashes of lightning. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dan Wolf. Welcome in for the second night in a row. We're starting over here talking weather. Strong storms moving in once again.
Yeah, we do have strong storms, but not severe storms moving into the Twin Ports area right now. So let's take a look at what we have going on radar. This line of thunderstorms was severe earlier in the night, even producing upwards of 60 to 65 mile per hour wind gusts. There are a lot of reports coming in out of Crow Wing County, especially of numerous trees down and power outages in that area. But the system has weakened a bit as it's moved its way into our area. We do have a really stiff wind coming in off Lake Superior, so that's not helping things out. Still quite a bit of lightning, quite a bit of rain on the way for us, so we're not completely out of the woods with this storm system. And also take note, across the international border, we've seen some redeveloping, some training thunderstorms up across the international border, so a lot of rain has fallen up that way too. Right now, we do have a tornado watch still down in the Twin Cities area. Another wave is moving its way northward. We do have a severe thunderstorm watch that's in effect in the pink shaded areas here. I'll pop that up. And then we also have a flood watch that's in effect across far northern or northeastern Minnesota. So there's kind of everything without radar for you. Clean it up a little bit. Still a lot going on here as we head into the overnight. A lot of this does expire at midnight, so we'll have to wait and see what happens then. But right now it's 45 degrees here in Canal Park. We do have those rain showers and thunderstorms beginning to push their way in. Tomorrow is looking a lot nicer. See a high of 74 degrees, mostly sunny skies in the afternoon. But a lot more to talk about with this weather tonight, and I'll definitely be back to talk more about this in just a little bit.
Yeah, we see the lightning. You mentioned not severe, but we are seeing a lot of power outages in the area. About 1,500 folks without power right now within our viewing area, and that number's probably going to grow.
Yeah, and you know, just because it's not severe doesn't mean that we can't have some wind gusts still upwards of 45, 50 mile per hour, you know, and just like isolated incidences.
Right.
And the ground is so saturated, trees, power lines can come down pretty easily, so just keep that in mind.
We'll keep people updated on the progress of those outages through our areas. The show goes on here tonight. Thank you, Adam.
Yep.
And stay ahead of this round of storms and the next one behind it using the KBJR weather app. It has constant updates, alerts, and live radar. Now to the damage caused by Wednesday's wild weather. Folks in Aiken County are picking up the pieces after a windstorm destroyed several buildings there. The Aiken County Fairgrounds saw widespread damages. 3 buildings were destroyed and 7 others damaged. The winds lifted wooden supports and sent sheets of metal flying several hundred feet, some of it wrapping around trees and electric poles. Fair organizers spent the day assessing the damage and clearing debris with a little under 8 weeks before the county fair opens. Hard to believe, but they're still confident they'll be ready for opening day.
We're just in kind of the final stages of fair preparation, securing materials and services that we need to support the fair and carry on the fair, but we've got enough time.
And Pazar says they're not sure how much the damage will set them back, but that insurance should cover most of it. We dealt with it yesterday, and as you can see behind me, once again here tonight, a lot of lightning. KBJR 6 meteorologist Bo Fogel breaks down the science behind electrical storms like these and what to do if you find yourself outdoors as one approaches.
Mother Nature has been making her presence known over the Northland with back-to-back strong to severe storms. Hail, strong winds, and cloud-to-ground lightning have been reported, with one striking the Blodnik Bridge Wednesday night. But how does lightning form? Lightning develops when negative charged particles at the base of thunderstorms begin to move downward, and this is what's called a streamer. And the streamer eventually begins to move downward towards positive charged particles at the surface or at the top of thunderstorms. And what happens is eventually the streamer merges with the positive charged particles, creating the lightning bolt. And this can happen several times within 1 second. So this can happen within a blink of an eye. And not only that, there are several different types of lightning, cloud to cloud, cloud to sky, but the one that injures and kills people the most is cloud to ground lightning. Now, data from NOAA shows that victims of people who were struck by lightning were fishing at the time of incident. Just under that is at the beach, and just under that is camping. And a lot of the victims happen to be male, but this incident can happen to anyone at any time. Each year, around 20 people across the United States die from lightning, and that's according to the National Weather Service. But how can you protect yourself from being struck?
It's a good idea not to take a shower or use a corded phone or electronics. In the case of a shower, it's a conduit. If lightning hits your house, it finds its way through a path. And it can go through the shower. It can just go through the water pipes.
If you are in your car, you are mostly safe due to the metallic exterior. But the overall rule of thumb in a lightning storm:
when thunder roars, go indoors.
With Minnesota's fishing opener coming up and Wisconsin season already underway, it's crucial to be aware of the weather before heading out onto the water. You saw it in that graphic that Bo showed there. More people are injured by lightning while fishing than doing any other activity. Other news tonight: more than a year after a Sawyer County woman's murder, a suspect has been named in her death. Carrie Elkin's body was found at her Stone Lake, Wisconsin home in April 2021. Authorities say she died of multiple gunshot wounds. After search warrants and interviews over the past year, today Sawyer County authorities named Manley McDermott as a suspect, and they're requesting charges. The 29-year-old from Bemidji is already in prison in Moose Lake on an unrelated gun conviction. It's unclear whether the victim and suspect knew each other or what led to that shooting. New at 10, the Minnesota House tonight voted to legalize sports betting in the state. The bill passed with bipartisan approval and would put Minnesota's native tribes in control by allowing in-person wagering at tribal casinos. However, the legislation is likely dead on arrival in the Senate. Republican Majority Leader Jeremy Miller says the bill needs to allow sports betting at all casinos, not just tribal facilities. By the way, Wisconsin has already made this legal. Minnesota Senate Democrats tried unsuccessfully today to force consideration of 9 abortion and health-related bills. Democrats knew the effort would fail, but tried anyway as a symbolic message following signs Roe v. Wade will be overturned. New at 10, word tonight, South Korean automaker Hyundai plans to build a massive electric vehicle plant in Georgia. A U.S. official says the announcement will be made next week while President Biden visits South Korea. The $7 billion facility will be in Savannah, and project leaders say could create 8,500 jobs. 1 million people have now died from COVID-19 in the United States. President Biden addressed the milestone today. He said we must remain vigilant against this pandemic and do everything we can to save as many lives as possible. Biden is expected to call on Congress to pass more COVID-19 funding. He's also focused on increasing efforts to deal with the virus and potential future variants. About 12,500 Minnesotans have died from the virus. The death toll is about 13,000 in Wisconsin. In Michigan, the death toll is more than Minnesota and Wisconsin's combined. Data shows that's due to the extreme toll COVID took on Detroit. Revitalizing Superior's downtown. One big goal Superior Mayor Jim Payne laid out in his State of the City address tonight. KBJR 6's Nora McEwen was there for the speech. Nora, sounds like Payne has some lofty plans.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Mayor Payne says he's proud of everything the city and community have been able to accomplish in the city over the past year, and he doesn't intend for that progress to slow down. According to Mayor Jim Payne, the city of Superior is as strong as ever.
Welcome to the Boomtown.
He gave his State of the City address Thursday at the old post office downtown, which soon will be the new home of the Development Association and Entrepreneur Fund, meant to drive Superior's success even higher.
The best place possible to celebrate the more than 30 new businesses that have opened in Superior in just the last year.
Payne took the opportunity to announce future projects.
We're going to totally redesign and rebuild Toller Avenue all the way to 28th Street and bring those neighborhoods and business districts back to life.
Superior's Planning, Economic Development, and Port Director, Jason Sirk, says it'll take changes on the zoning end, but he looks forward to working with the mayor to bring businesses to the North End District.
One of the areas that the community kind of came together on that needed revitalization is this North End.
They plan to start with the folk school built in the empty Department of Transportation lot. Beyond that, Payne says he wants to enhance the beauty of Superior's wilderness.
If it's safe to swim again, but if it is, we're going to bring swimming back to Billings Park.
He also plans to formally return the indigenous burial grounds at Wisconsin Point and Nemadji Cemetery to the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa. Reflecting on what Payne calls a successful year while looking forward for what's to come.
When I look at what we've done, I can't help but dream even bigger.
Payne says he'll also work to expand broadband access, treatment for mental health and addiction, childcare, and bringing the Princess Theater back to the city.
Thank you, Nora. Still to come, homegrown super spreader. What organizers of the musical festival now want all attendees to do.
And we are definitely not done with the thunderstorms for the night. I'll take a closer look at what we can expect through the overnight and into the weekend ahead coming up after the break.
Tonight at 6, washed out roads in St. Louis County and storm damage in Deer River. A look at how weather continues to take its toll on the Northland.
Plus, as a jury continues to deliberate tonight in a Cloquet murder trial, we break down both sides' closing arguments.
And we're expecting a big announcement from Two Harbors Mayor tomorrow, one day after his resignation deadline.
From CBS 3 Duluth, this is the CBS 3 News at 6.
Well, that was footage showing a potential funnel cloud beginning to form. This was taken in Deer River yesterday as severe weather tore through most of the region. The National Weather Service has not confirmed that a tornado touched down there. However, they are currently assessing what could have caused the damage. Good evening. I'm Briggs LaSavage.
And I'm Kristen Bakke. Thanks for joining us. The community of Deer River, just west of Grand Rapids, was hit especially hard by that storm that rolled through last night. And that's where we find CBS 3's Larissa Millis tonight. Larissa, what are things looking like out there?
Kristen, Briggs, Deer River is a small community, but it was hit hard by yesterday's storms. Behind me, you can see there are two garages right here that are both slanted to the ground. One car even looks like its back windshield was blown out. If we take a look this way, this tree that is right here, just about 10 minutes ago, crews removed it from this apartment building. It must have fallen during the storm. This building, thankfully, did not get any damage. Looking even further across the street, we're in the downtown area where you can see the law office, there's a funeral home, and then beyond this red truck right here is the post office. All of those buildings facing damage on their roofs. Inside, most of them will have to be completely torn down and rebuilt. The funeral home, the only one in Deer River, the owner told me that it's been in the family for over 25 years. She says that while the community is devastated that there's a lot of property damage, they're really thankful that nobody here was hurt. And it's been really grateful, and they've been very grateful to see the community coming out, helping each other, cleaning up after these storms. I'll throw it back to you guys.
Yeah, certainly thankful that there were no injuries being reported. And again, as of right now, the National Weather Service has not confirmed any tornadoes in our DMA, but should have more information for us soon. Larissa Millis in Deer River for us tonight. Thank you, Larissa. Meanwhile, the city of Deer River is providing community dumpsters to help clear away storm debris. The dumpsters will be available today through June 8th between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. You can find them behind the Public Works building on 4th Avenue Northwest. For those looking to get rid of uprooted trees and brush, the city has designated a spot for that on the tennis courts at the end of 2nd Street Northwest.
And parts of St. Louis County are dealing with washed out roads after last night's storms. That includes Foley and Morton roads near Hibbing. County spokespeople say crews are fixing those areas right now and keeping tabs on other road conditions too. If you come across a dangerous area, be sure to call 911.
And Cass County is on the mend following severe weather conditions over the weekend.
West Central Cass County received a tornado warning notice from their National Weather Service yesterday afternoon.
A radar suggests a tornado did touch down in that area. Poplar and Byron townships experiencing the most extensive damage. However, many other city roads were blocked with downed trees and power lines.
The NWS is currently investigating if that damage was in fact caused by a tornado. So far, they have estimated $120,000 in public infrastructure damage, but that number is growing quickly. Emergency response crews have been working to clean up the damage, and as of 1 o'clock this afternoon, all roads are clear and open. Drivers should be careful in those areas as tree and power line work will continue for the coming days.
Meteorologist Bo Fogel joins us now. Bo, certainly just crazy to see how quickly those storms over the weekend caused that much damage.
Yeah, it was quite busy, let's say the least, last night for us keeping track of those storms. But I'm glad that there have been no injuries or casualties reported with these storms. I'm glad everybody was safe. But yeah, a lot of damage. Fortunately, next couple of days, you'll have plenty of time to clean up. Looking at current conditions right now, we're seeing temperatures in the mid to upper 50s. The cold front definitely decreased our temperatures. We're still dealing with mostly cloudy to overcast skies, but overall, though, it is quite nice out there, even though it is a little breezy. Temperatures, though, continue on decreasing. You can notice how there's a huge difference between temperatures in UP and Wisconsin and temperatures in northern Minnesota. That cold front really decreasing our temperatures. We are dealing with a couple of isolated showers throughout mainly Minnesota, but that will be coming to an end as we head through the evening hours. For tonight, it's going to remain dry and quiet. We are going to start out mostly cloudy, but the clouds will decrease. The winds will also decrease through the evening hours, and by tomorrow, we are going to see plenty of sunshine. But coming up in a few minutes, I'm going to break down this week's forecast and if there's more rain in the forecast.
Thank you, Bo. Thousands of people are still without power today after that severe weather swept across the region yesterday. At last check, Minnesota Power is reporting 156 outages, affecting more than 3,000 customers. That's mostly in the Grand Rapids, Iron Range, and central Minnesota area. Meanwhile, Lake Country Power is reporting 238 outages, affecting almost 6,000 members. Most of those outages are in Itasca and St. Louis County. Minnesota Power is saying it could take several days for power to be restored.
Lake Country says they hope to have the lights back on by 11 o'clock tomorrow night.
Closing arguments have been made.
And now the jury is deliberating as we speak in a Cloquet man's murder trial.
Shelton Thompson is charged with the murder of Jackie Defoe, her son Kevin, and her unborn child in March of 2020. Now a jury is deciding whether or not he's guilty of premeditated first-degree murder and second-degree murder.
We go now to CBS 3's Quinn Gorham, who's been tracking this trial for us since last week. Quinn, what happened today in the courtroom?
Yeah, Briggs, Kristen, the closing arguments today were both intense and thorough, and a lot of conversation was had about those charges you just mentioned. Let's break those down a little bit and what they mean in the scope of this trial. This morning kicked off with jury instruction. That's where the jury was told what they need to consider in regards to a verdict. First-degree premeditated murder means the state needs to prove both intent and planning, but that premeditation could be anywhere from several weeks to several minutes. There's no defined time frame for that. The prosecution laid out a detailed timeline of events they believe pointed to Thompson not only committing the murders, but thinking about them beforehand. That timeline included video surveillance of his car entering and leaving the area, attempting to purchase a new vehicle, and withdrawing thousands of dollars from a local bank within minutes. They also pointed to the testimonies of those close to Thompson who alleged he admitted to the murders in the days surrounding Defoe's death. Finally, they presented the, quote, brutal killings of Defoe and her son as evidence that their deaths were no accident. Defoe had more than 30 stab wounds, many made after her heart had stopped, and her son Kevin had broken bones all over. The defense's rebuttal, however, they drew attention to what they called unclear forensics, claiming blood found on scene from Thompson could have come from any time prior to Defoe's murder. They also claimed some of the witnesses' testimony was unreliable due to alleged drug use. Finally, they pointed to the medical examiner who performed the autopsy 4 days after the murder, claiming decomposition may have begun just 2 days prior. Following a brief rebuttal to all those statements from the state, the jury was turned over to deliberate. Now, that was at 1 o'clock, meaning it's been just over 5 hours they've been in those back rooms deliberating, and we're still awaiting that verdict.
Quinn, any idea what might have them in there for so long, conversation-wise?
Yeah, Briggs, my best guess would be that they're hung up on the reasonable doubt aspect of that Thompson either committed the murders or that he did so in such a way that would warrant the charges the state filed. The state and the prosecution really laid out all that evidence, both circumstantial and direct, but the defense called a lot of that into question today with their closing arguments, so they may be hung up on some of the peripherals on that information.
And of course, we'll continue to keep tabs on this case and update you tonight if the jury reaches a verdict. Thank you, Quinn.
Meanwhile, new at 6, a Superior 12-year-old is in custody tonight after allegedly threatening to harm other students. Superior Middle School staff got a tip this morning saying a student wrote a list of names that included students he intended to harm. Staff isolated that student right away, and 2 Superior police detectives started investigating. They say the student admitted to writing the list to scare another student. He's in police custody tonight and could be referred to the Douglas County Health and Human Services Department. Authorities have also requested he be charged with terrorist threats, which is a felony, and misdemeanor disorderly conduct.
Wisconsin's governor spent the day saying thank you to frontline workers here in the Northwoods. It's part of his statewide appreciation tour, meeting with nurses, doctors, and more in all corners of the Badger State. Today's trip took Governor Tony Evers to Crooked Lake Park in Siren and Ashland High School's Field House. Evers thanked all of the region's frontline workers for continuing to help communities through the COVID pandemic. Two Harbors mayor is expected to make an announcement tomorrow.
This coming just 1 day after his deadline to either resign or face a recall election. Last Monday, the Two Harbors City Council voted in favor of a recall election for Mayor Chris Swanson. He then had 5 business days to submit his resignation. That deadline was 4:30 this afternoon. We reached out to the city administrator to learn what happened, but did not immediately hear back. Swanson did not immediately say what his announcement is about, but we do hope to ask him more about this situation. Recently, 600 Two Harbors residents signed a petition asking the mayor to either resign or be recalled. They were concerned with his handling of private versus public business.
Still to come on Live Local CBS 3, we share what some savvy Minnesota and Wisconsin kids are up to as they take on a highly respected competition at the national level.
And temperatures today did cool down because of that cold front, and we're way above in terms of rainfall average. But coming up in a few minutes, we'll break down if we have more chances of rain forecast.
Tonight, the first runners are about to cross the William A. Irvin 5K starting line, officially kicking off a weekend full of Grandma's Marathon races. We'll take you live to the course.
Plus, thousands of runners means millions of dollars funneling into the Twin Ports. We hear from local business owners who rely on this weekend.
And we take you to Duluth City Hall, where dozens came together to recognize the end of slavery in the U.S.
From CBS 3 Duluth, this is the CBS 3 News at 6.
Good evening, I'm Kristen Bakke.
And I'm Briggs LaSavage. Thanks for joining us. Today marks the start of Grandma's Marathon weekend, where runners come from all around the world to race right here on the North Shore. And right now, the William A. Irvin 5K is just about to start.
CBS 3's Kevin Moore is at the starting line tonight. Kevin, runners are about to start any second now. How's the energy out there?
Energy is great. The whistle just blew behind me. It's a busy day in Canal Park. As anybody who drove around for the last hour, a few hours, it was crazy coming out when you see the runners there running in. And I know Minnesotans, they're probably the most humble bunch of folks I've ever met. But we deserve this, especially everything that's been going on in the last 2 years with COVID. Runners you just see just took off in the William A. Irvin 5K. And I can't stress enough how beautiful of a day it is. I know Dave will give you more of that information coming up. But I'm excited for my first Grandma's Marathon weekend. The Northland is excited to be back cheering on the runners. Kristen and Briggs coming up in sports. The runners will be crossing the finish line, and hopefully I'll meet you there with some of the best runners that cross the finish line early, guys.
Yeah, it looked like that first wave was about to trample you right there, Kevin. Wow, some fast
I was nervous.
For sure.
They were leaving a breeze behind them as they ran by.
All right, well, we'll see you again in a few minutes.
I was more nervous for that. I was more nervous for that than a hockey game at Amsoil, honestly.
Yeah, a lot of energy there, a lot of chances for pucks to the face. So, all right, we'll see you again in a few minutes at the finish line. Thanks, Kevin.
Well, some of the youngest racers kicked off Grandma's Marathon weekend today. The annual Whippersnappers races kicked off this afternoon at Bayfront Festival Park. The mascot race was first in the lineup, featuring Victor the Viking and UMD's Champ the Bulldog, among others. Kids of all ages from around 1 year old to 14 lined up at the starting line shortly after to get their chance to compete. One runner said today's race was all for fun.
I don't really care about points that come in. It's just about running for me, because I like the outdoors and I like to run.
The Young Athletes Foundation puts on the Whippersnapper races and helps promote healthy and active lifestyles for kids. About 7 years ago, one Duluth woman could barely walk 10 feet.
Now she's attempting to run 26.2 miles during Grandma's Marathon. Julianne Vosicek, who coaches the St. Scholastica women's hockey team, was diagnosed with a rare liver disease that threw her life off course back in 2009. Her symptoms suddenly worsened in 2015, and then she had to get an emergency liver transplant. She was so sick that she wasn't awake for the 5 days she waited for a liver donor. When she woke up from her surgery, she could barely move. As a three-time national champion for UMD's hockey team and member of the U.S. women's national team, Vosicek is a serious athlete. Her tenacious attitude helped her get through her recovery, and now to the starting line of Grandma's Marathon. She says she's ready to leave it all on the course tomorrow.
I've put in some hard work. I've put in a long road, certainly in 7 years since the transplant. And so it's kind of a culmination. So I know that no matter what happens tomorrow, I'm going to finish, and it's going to be fun.
Very awesome. Vosicek will be running the marathon alongside someone special tomorrow. We'll have more on that tonight at 10. And more than 60 countries are represented in this year's field of athletes. Grandma's Marathon is welcoming those folks to town with their national flags flying behind the deck. They hope this will help make everybody feel welcome as they run the last leg of the race.
And you can still sign up to track your favorite runner. All you need is the Grandma's Marathon mobile app.
It will give you real-time updates on when your athlete passes certain points in either the full or half marathons.
Let's get a check of the weather now with Dave. Dave, we're seeing some beautiful weather, but there is still at least one other warning out there.
Yep, the same warning we've been talking about for over a month, it seems. The flood warning for northern Minnesota still in effect through the weekend, so folks up north do be cautious. Still a hint that 11 o'clock on Monday, though, there's a very slight chance, well, it could be 50-50 at best. Anyway, it may be dropped if NWS decides things have gone down enough up there, but there's also a pretty good chance it could be extended. So people near the border in the flood zone, do be cautious. Current temperatures, normals in the low 70s, around 72, and a lot of places around the lake are fairly close to that. It has perked up to 81 for Moose Lake right now, but this time of year, that isn't so bad either. Our race forecast says overnight tonight, things will drop into the upper 40s. When people start a running tomorrow on a highway up the shore there, about 47 degrees. When they finish, anywhere between 60 and 70 degrees. 60 more likely by the finish line, 70 up over the hill. Sunshine hits us one more day on Saturday, but there is a slight chance for some showers to slap us Sunday morning. Will it spill into the rest of the day? And what's coming up on Monday? What are these rumors of this heat wave? I'll talk about both those counts coming up in just a bit.
Thanks, Dave. It's one of the biggest weekends of the year, not just for runners, but for Duluth's economy.
Grandma's Marathon brings in a massive amount of cash each year, and for some businesses, it can be a game changer. CBS 3's Quinn Gorham reports.
There's nothing like Grandma's Marathon.
It's a weekend that brings almost 20,000 runners and their families and friends to Duluth each year, the unofficial kickoff to summer. But Matt Baumgartner, president of the Duluth Area Chamber of Commerce, says for many businesses, it's a lot more than a good time.
What that means is $21 million of economic impact happening in our community on just a weekend. And that means everything to this business community.
According to Baumgartner, some businesses can see up to 3 times the income they bring in on a normal weekend. And with this year's races sold out, he says a lot of them are anticipating the visitors they'll get this weekend.
It's the first day that they'll cash flow since last summer, and so it's just really an exciting time that everybody ramps up for.
That's big news for businesses like Chacho's Taqueria.
A lot of people come through. The finish line's right here, and hopefully with our new storefront and menu board up and some new menu items, they'll draw in a lot of people.
Co-owner Aaron Maloney says the business is already seeing a massive influx of people.
We've already started to meet people from different parts of the country. And just see this area alive again.
And Baumgartner says the weekend is an opportunity for businesses all over the area that are just like Chacho's.
An event like Grandma's Marathon, where you have 50,000 people, most of which from outside of the area come here, that becomes a force multiplier to being able to expose people to your new business, your new good, or your new service.
And this year's marathon is already making a big splash. It's the first sellout since 2016. That's well before the COVID-19 pandemic.
And turning to some other news now, Minnesota's junior senator met with Duluth airport officials today, learning how she can help them in our nation's capital. U.S. Senator Tina Smith held a roundtable discussion to determine how to use funds from the infrastructure bill. Smith says funding from that act can be used for many projects around the region, including fixing roads and bridges, improving mass transit, and closing gaps in rural broadband service. According to Smith, she's looking to get these projects moving quickly while the weather can accommodate construction.
You know, in the North Country, our construction season is pretty short, so we don't have a lot of time to waste. We need to make sure that we get things flowing so that we can make these much-needed improvements.
In addition to stopping at the airport, Smith also toured Cirrus Aircraft, met with leaders at a women's reproductive health facility, and attended a Juneteenth lunch at City Hall.
It looks like the chances of Minnesota lawmakers heading back to finish unfinished business are low. A special legislative session would have allowed lawmakers to consider billions of dollars in tax cuts and new spending in Minnesota. They couldn't come to an agreement during the regular session, which ended last month. Democratic Governor Tim Walz said last night talks with Republican leaders aren't going anywhere, leaving billions of dollars from a state surplus unspent.
Abortion providers are bracing for the final days of the U.S. Supreme Court's guarantee of a right to an abortion. In places like Wisconsin, where the procedure could be banned if the court overturns Roe v. Wade, Planned Parenthood is not scheduling appointments beyond June 25th. In South Dakota, the state's only abortion clinic says it has paused scheduling abortions beyond the end of the month. Some abortion providers are transitioning staff to help patients travel to other states and creating networks of clinics that will span across the country. The state is looking at a new date for a proposed hearing on a wood product facility, in Itasca County.
We originally reported the hearing was being held yesterday. However, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency postponed it and is still considering a future date. A North Carolina-based company plans to build the Huber-engineered woods facility in Cohasset. But first, all of their permits need to get approved by the state. We'll be sure to let you know when that hearing is scheduled.
An update tonight from St. Luke's Hospital. After announcing yesterday they were ready to start vaccinating children as young as 6 months against COVID, the hospital issued a correction this morning. They now say they hope to start those vaccinations soon after the CDC takes its final vote tomorrow. The FDA issued its approval earlier this week.
Still to come on Live Local CBS 3, not only is it Grandma's Marathon this weekend, but it's also the Juneteenth holiday. Stick around as we share how locals have been celebrating.
As far as rain goes, we're 1.3 inches shy, at least here at the end of the lakes. Up around International Falls, of course, they're over. So some of us need rain, others don't. We could get a little rain come Sunday morning. Otherwise, it's dry until then. We'll talk about how much rain could come down Sunday morning to set the stage for a warm spell on Monday, coming up after our break.